A massive game at Celtic Park as Motherwell visit. Can Stephen Robinson be an instant hit at Aberdeen? And who is going to come out on top in the Dundee derby? I'm Charlotte Cohen, and alongside Moira Gordon and Andy Halliday, we are getting stuck into all of this weekend's action. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday the 13th of March. And it's the weekend preview.
In from McInnes, there's a flick towards goal, it's stabbed into the net and Celtic lead!
Oh! Sorry Al, we've got a goal at Motherwell. Oh, simple ball over the top. It's Motherwell 2, Dundee United 0.
A must-win for Motherwell as they head to Celtic in the game of the weekend. And can Aberdeen's new boss win over the doubters in his own support?
The problem is that there is supporter negativity towards Stephen Robinson, and that is going to be a problem for him right from day one because he'll be operating on quite a short length of rope.
Stephen Robinson faces a baptism of fire as Falkirk head north. And will Stephen Pressley enjoy a derby as Dundee host Neighbours United?
I don't enjoy it, to be perfectly honest. I think if you task any manager, it's not a game or a period you particularly enjoy.
We'll fill you in on all of this weekend's Premiership action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
And alongside me to do all of that, Moira Gordon, Scottish football writer. Morning, Moira. Which game are you most excited about this weekend?
I think you've got to look at the Celtic Motherwell game. I think that's one that's... I just think there's so many games, actually. But yeah, everything's mouth-watering at the moment.
And alongside us to chat all of these mouth-watering fixtures, Andy Halliday, Motherwell midfielder. Morning, Andy. What about you? Which game are you most looking forward to this weekend?
Well, I suppose the bias in Charlotte's got to say Motherwell Celtic as well. It's been, listen, the two of them have been two fantastic games so far this season. I think both teams are in good form over the last sort of month or so going into the game. And obviously I think it's a big fixture that's going to shape what might look like a completely different title race come Monday. With obviously the games at Rugby Park and Paisley as well. So I'm going to stick with Motherwell Celtic.
Good choice. Well, let's start with Saturday's matches in the title race and this Celtic Motherwell game at 3 o'clock. Andy, I'll come to you first. Obviously, you're very well versed in Motherwell. Must win for them. I mean, bouncing back after getting beat off Dundee. If they want to keep their foot in the title race, it is just need the 3 points.
Well, listen, I think the manager's done a fantastic job at batting away any title race questions. I think he's took the short game approach for the first game of the season. So I think obviously it was real disappointment against Dundee last week. But what I will say is I thought Dundee were really good. I thought they had a game plan that really nullified us and frustrated us. I don't think it's going to be that type of game at Celtic Park. Celtic at home, they're clearly going to try and win the game. It's going to be really open. And I think from a Motherwell point of view, I think you've seen for the team that every single game, no matter who it's been, no matter what the stadium's at, the game plan's to go and try and get 3 points. So I expect a really exciting game, a really open game. Both teams have loads of threats. So I certainly think it's going to be one that's going to be a good watch for the neutral, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Celtic, interestingly, Moira, could be without Callum McGregor again. We'll know more after Martin O'Neill's presser today, but it seems as though he could be missing. Kieran Tierney might be back, but interesting selection problems for Martin O'Neill, isn't it, Moira?
Yeah, it's not what you need at this stage of the season, but I think it's to be expected at this stage of the season. You know, injuries catch up, things become more difficult for managers to manage. Players are usually carrying niggles at this stage as well. I think, obviously, without him, those key players last weekend, people looked at and thought that would be their undoing against Rangers for large parts of the match. Maybe they weren't the better team, but they still found a way to get the result. And I think when you've got key players missing and you still manage to do that, I think that would have been heartening for Martin O'Neill. But I think it's still, this is maybe a slightly different, opponent they're looking at. Motherwell are not known for like resting their laurels or being a bit intimidated by MD. They'll go there and they've played all season like they've got nothing to lose. They've played on that, as a team and with lots of strengths. And I think they look at players or teams that would go there and sense that there's maybe a weakness or vulnerability there, and I don't think Motherwell will be the team that you'd be fancying coming to you at that point. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they cope without key players like that again.
Well, I do wonder, Andy, obviously Celtic had to be very defensive against Rangers. You know very well the way Motherwell play. We've all seen the way Motherwell play. They can totally tear teams apart. First question, will Celtic play defensively against Motherwell at home? And secondly, if they do you think the fans would accept that? I mean, at Parkhead, Motherwell coming, sitting back and parking the bus?
Yeah, I don't think they will. For me, I think last week was an anomaly. I've not really seen Celtic play that style for as long as I can remember, to be honest with you, domestically. Now, you've got to give them credit for it, because it resulted in them getting the job done, winning the penalty shootout, getting through to the next round. Obviously, I'd imagine that injuries played their part. Callum McGregor is such a huge part of what Celtic do on the ball and try to get the game ticking over for them and building through the thirds. But I can't see that being the case. At home at Celtic Park, like you said, against Motherwell, I think they'll fully have a game plan to try and dominate the way they can and try and impose their style of play on Motherwell. That being said, Motherwell will have the exact same approach. So I think it's going to be a cracker for everyone to watch. I think obviously there's still huge question marks, regardless of injuries, what Mark O'Neill's best team could possibly be at this stage of the season, which almost seems mental considering you're in the middle of March. But there's no doubt whatsoever Celtic they're in a difficult stage in terms of who's available to them. But what he's got available to them, Mark O'Neill will pick the best team that he thinks is possible to win the 3 points.
Yeah, well, we're saying all this about it being a cracker, and no doubt it's going to be 0-0.
Oh,
you wouldn't
don't
expect
say that
it from these two, though.
Don't say that.
There's no way Motherwell play in a game that finishes 0-0. I'm not having that.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, the other game that will be massive in the title race is Kilmarnock Hearts, which kicks off at 8 p.m. We were talking about it on the podcast the other day, Andy. This is a massive, massive game for Hearts, because if they win this game, they go down to Rugby Park on a difficult pitch, clearly in difficult conditions, and win this game. They're going into next week again at least 5 points clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the last 3-4 weekends, every weekend you feel like, come this Monday, you're going to have a real clearer picture of who could potentially win this league. In the last 2 weekends, there's no doubt whatsoever that the Hearts have came out on the positive side of them, with Rangers and Celtic dropping points. The last league's fixture at Ibrox, and then the week before when Livingston take points off of Rangers, and Hibs obviously beat Celtic Park. And Hearts, quietly again, have got their job done. 2-1-0 victories, came out really looking strong for it, and then 5 points clear at the top of the table. I have the feeling again it's going to be the exact same. You look at the game and the games at face value with Celtic and Motherwell, Kilmarnock Hearts, and obviously Rangers going to Paisley. It would take a brave person not to predict that one of them could drop points. So again, by Monday the table could look all that different. I've been a believer for a long period of time. I think it's Hearts' league, and I think when they really won me over with that was the last time they went to Rugby Park and they won 3-0. I think at that stage of the season, it was enough of a sample size for me to suggest that at this moment in time, Hearts were the best team in the league. And they obviously now have a 5 point cushion with obviously only 9 games remaining. And it's also interesting, I always think when it comes to this stage of the season, I always think it suits being the first team to play. And I think that Hearts have done that week on week because Celtic and Rangers have been in Europe. Quite often they've got the Sunday games on TV. Now this weekend is the first time that actually Celtic are going to be the first team to play. So Celtic obviously get their 3 points and then puts the pressure on Hearts, and it is a completely different type of pressure. I think Hearts have dealt with their own pressure pretty well this year, but it won't be pressure going on to Celtic and Rangers on Sunday. It'll be Hearts' turn, so we'll see how they manage to deal with that.
Yeah, the other positive for Hearts, Moira, is Cammy Devlin and Lawrence Shankland are almost back in contention. I think Derek McInnes saying yesterday that this weekend is too soon for them, but they'll both be back in full training. That's got to be a massive boost for them, hasn't it?
That's the thing, we're talking about Celtic there, about the number of injuries they've got to key players. Hearts are going to be the complete opposite. They're getting these key players back. They've weathered this storm, a period where they've been without talismanic players, and they're going to be coming back just at the right time, you would imagine, for them. So I think they're probably smart not to be bringing them back this week in the Kilmarnock pitch, giving them an extra week just to make sure they're fully fit. They also, you look at the players that have seen them through the last few weeks, and Derek McInnes is perfectly entitled to believe that they can go through this fixture with these guys and still manage to get the points. So there's the benefit has been the squad that's been there, the way that Derek McInnes has managed it as well. Key players out, but coming back at a time where you've got the title running, you've got the split, and you'd be absolutely delighted to be having players like Cameron Devlin and Lauren Shank come back the way they've been playing this season.
100%. Kelly have been struggling though, haven't they, Andy? I mean, they looked like they were kind of finding a bit of form. Neil McCann had come in and had them firing again, and then they go and get beat 5-1 off Falkirk at the end of February. I mean, how much do you think that's going to affect their confidence?
I think they'll be disappointed that they've had to dwell on that for a couple of weeks and they've not had the chance to get back on the pitch and try and change the narrative pretty quickly. What I will say is that I feel, for an outsider looking in, I think I'm a lot more confident in a good Kilmarnock performance and a good Kilmarnock result under Neil McCann. I think there's certainly been an upturn since he's came in the door. But that being said, like most teams in the bottom six, it's really difficult to predict. No, you don't predict the first half that Kilmarnock give against Celtic at Rugby Park. They go 2-0 up at half time, they end up losing the game 3-2. They follow that up with a 1-1 draw against Dundee United. But there's been obviously some really impressive wins within that as well, like the 4-3 win against St Mirren. So I'm edging on that. I actually think Kilmarnock might just evade that 11th spot, which I think maybe a wee bit of a bold prediction given the predicament they're in at this moment in time. But that being said, to finish out that 11th spot, obviously the bottom six when it comes to the split is hugely important, but try to win and pick up points when you're not expected is huge as well. And I don't think there'll be a lot of people predicting Kilmarnock to pick up points this weekend, but if they can manage to do so, then like he says, they take so much momentum going into the remaining 8 games.
Well, this season you just never know what's going to happen week to week, so
no idea.
Exactly. Well, there's 2 other tantalising fixtures on Saturday. Big one, let's start at Pittodrie. Moira, Stephen Robinson's first game as Aberdeen boss. I've seen very, very mixed responses from the Aberdeen fans. I wonder what kind of reception you think he's going to get at the weekend.
I think most fans will try and be positive at the game. I mean, I think, as you say, there's a huge number of them that aren't actually enthralled by this appointment, which, I think I can understand them being a bit frustrated, and it's not necessarily by the appointment of Stephen Robinson, it's the fact that it's taken so long to get here. If he is the perfect man, that's the bit that I think Aberdeen have undermined Stephen Robinson by waiting so long to actually appoint him, rather than actually any of his credentials undermining himself. So I think the fans, typically, even if they're not hugely behind the appointment, will try and still give the team and the manager a rousing reception coming out, and hope that I think at this stage it'll be hope that maybe their disappointment will turn into something more positive. So I think that there will be a positive reception, I think, but whether the players respond to it more than whether the fans do, I don't think you can criticise the fans necessarily this season. You can criticise that playing squad, and there are players there that should be sitting higher than the position they're in at the league. So they're the ones that are going to have to respond to Stephen Robinson and show what they're made of.
That is the big thing, isn't it, Andy, for Stephen Robinson, is they've got good players in that Aberdeen squad. Like, they spent money. They've got players in there who are of very high quality. It's about getting them firing. But you think Stephen Robinson, if anyone's the kind of manager who's going to get players up for playing, it's probably him. Yeah,
and I don't think there's any doubt that's why Stephen Robinson would take the job. He would assess the playing squad. He'd feel like he can get more out of them from now to the end of the season, and then obviously take into the summer, he'll try and put his own spin behind things. But I completely agree with Moira. I don't think there should be question marks about the appointment of Stephen Robinson. I think there should be questions around the process that's led to Stephen Robinson. By the time that Jimmy Taylor got the sack at Aberdeen were still in the race for top 6. They were still in the Scottish Cup, and it's felt like it's almost been a case where our season's almost done, and not only that, there's some outside noise and feelings like, can we get dragged into what potentially could be a playoff spot at the bottom of the league, before they thought, do you know what, we need to appoint a manager pretty quickly, and they've resulted in appointing a manager that's been under their nose this full time. So I think for the outside looking in, it's looked like it's looked out like a wee bit of a circus of how this has all panned out. But coming this weekend, I'm a big believer in new manager bounce. We've seen it so often, and it's a Falkirk side that have done nothing but impress me all season long. So it's going to be a difficult opening game for Stephen Robinson, but it's one that wouldn't surprise me at all if he manages to turn the fortunes round for Aberdeen in such a short space of time.
Yeah, Moira, Andy talks about Falkirk. I mean, when you're a team in trouble, the last opponent you really want to be facing at this moment is Falkirk.
It's certainly one of the last ones, that's for sure. That's the thing. Again, like I was talking about Motherwell earlier, the Falkirk are a sort of team that will come and fancy their chances against anybody. They might not be challenging for the title. They might not be one of the ones like Motherwell Hearts that are up there, trying to mess up the Celtic Rangers duopoly. But they are a team that play with good football. They play with no fear, and they have built up, so many reserves now of self-belief and confidence that wherever they're travelling to, they'll go there with confidence. So if there was a team that was going to come and maybe unsettle things, I'm like Andy, I think, a new manager, it gives teams a bit of, they want to impress players that maybe have been underperforming, see that as their chance to actually nail down a starting spot, or, make sure they're not the ones that are shuffled out the door. So they'll try and impress Aberdeen, but Falkirk, they'll have no respect for that. They'll have no interest in trying to make things easy for them or a bedding in period easy for Stephen Robinson. And I think it will be a really intriguing afternoon.
And the final game on Saturday is Hibs against Livingston. Andy, Livy have kind of started improving recently, still without a win though since August, I think. I mean, it's another tough game for them, but another one where they probably really need to pick something up.
Yeah, Marvin Bartley's got to tune out the players. I think they certainly have improved. I do have the feeling it might be too late. I think they've gathered a wee bit of speed and gathered a wee bit of momentum, but within that, still not winning games. They've obviously picked up some good points within that. Obviously taking points off of Rangers, going to Dens, which has been a difficult place to play, and getting a point as well. But you just felt as if, you hear this must-win game for Livy. I feel like I've been saying that since January, and they've not managed to win yet. So I don't know how much longer I can use that line for them. I just feel as if they've ran out of time and it's a wee bit too late. That being said, there's nothing to suggest. We've seen so many remarkable things when it comes to the split. Hibs just missing out in top six and end up being relegated 6 weeks later. So there's nothing to say they can't. But for me, they have to go on a serious amount of wins and a serious run of games. But so far this season, how could you predict that? They've only won one game. But if there was a season for that to come, I think it's going to be this season that we've had this year, so you just never know.
That's the thing though, this season though, it's like, would you back anybody to go on a serious run of games? That's the thing, that teams are all taking points off each other, that if there had been previous seasons, you might have fancied Livingston's chances of that little, miracle run more than you do this year. You'd need an awful lot of players and an awful lot of teams to stop picking up points, because everybody seems to be managing it, maybe not week by week, but people are surprising each other every single week. So it's like, this isn't a season, I would think, where the bottom club's suddenly going to put together 6 wins in a trot. So yeah, I'm like Andy, I think it's probably time's run out of it for them.
Yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? But Hibs have been, again, we talk about it every time we talk about Hibs, up and down, but they look like they're finally maybe steadying out. 3-3 draw against Dundee last time, conceding that very late goal. Andy, how do you see them getting on at home against the bottom club?
I think they'll go in as heavy favourites, and I think they'll be pretty confident they can go and win the game as well. For me, I've said it so many times about Hibs, I think Hibs have got really, really good players. I think they have very good individuals. I just think as a collective, I think they've been too inconsistent throughout the course of the season. That being said, they're certainly going to be big favourites going into this weekend. And I think Hibs are in that really, really difficult position where the Scottish Cup felt as if it could be huge for them to get a late run within that. And since they've been knocked out, you feel as if they're trying to get their wins at the weekend. But a big focus of theirs is on the Hearts results to make sure that they don't win the league. So I've no doubt whatsoever that after the game at Easter Road, a lot of the Hibs fans folks will be watching Hearts Kelly at Rugby Park and be cheering on for the guys for Ayrshire.
Well, your weekend listening starts with the Saturday show at 9 o'clock on BBC Radio Scotland, followed by Off the Ball at 12, and Sport Sound starts at 2 o'clock. Well, let's take a look at Sunday's fixtures, the small matter of the Dundee derby. Moira, this is an interesting one because if you'd have asked us a few months ago, you would have thought Dundee United are the favourites, but now it's looking like it's maybe Stephen Presley's side.
That's it. Dundee have found real form again now. I think when you look at the last few games, they've got better form than Dundee United. So it is going to be interesting. Normally you would look at it and say that the home advantage would help them as well, but that hasn't been the case in the Dundee derbies of late. So that might be the one thing in Dundee United's favour. But I think Stephen Presley's done a remarkable job. I think a lot of us at the beginning of the season looked at Dundee and thought they might be the team that would be, along with Livingston, struggling down the bottom of the table and looking like they could go down. So I think the fact he's come in, so much negativity greeted him. We talk about Stephen Robinson there, but there's so much negativity greeted Stephen Presley's arrival, but he's managed to pull it together. The team seemed to be, united. The fact that Simon Murray's back, looking threatening in front of goal again. There's just a few things that are all coming together at the right time, they'll go into this game. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't take a bet on this Dundee derby. I would make one, that's for sure. I don't think it's one that's easy to call.
Yeah, and Moira mentions Stephen Presley and the kind of turnaround for him. But Andy, he was saying in his presser yesterday, he doesn't enjoy derbies. He says they're all right if you win them, but I think there's quite a lot of pressure on them. As somebody who I'm sure has played in numerous derbies, I mean, were you a fan?
I love them. I've not enjoyed loads of them after the game, but I love them going into the game, that's for sure. I can't comment on it being a manager. I'd imagine it's a lot more difficult on the side of the pitch where you can't, yourself individually affect the game during the 90 minutes. But I mean, if you don't like derbies, then I don't know what else I can say. They're the best things about our game, I think. We all talk about how passionate our fans are. And I think these are the games you look forward to. I feel like the Dundee derby for me is one that very rarely disappoints. I think every time you watch it, there's always entertainment, there's always goals. A lot of the time the entertainment isn't for just pure sheer quality. It could be for the other things, the blood and thunder side, the physical side. And I think that's going to be a big one this weekend for obvious reasons. But again, I must admit, I do just edge to Dundee. I think at this moment in time, I think they're so well organised. I think you can tell they're well coached, but I think they've got individuals that can win them games. I think so much has been said about their wide players throughout the season, and Yogi and Cameron Congreve. I think they've been excellent, and I actually think they're hitting their best pitch at the real right time of the season, which is now. And that being said, I think Dundee United are the complete opposite. They can't really put a run together. I don't really think there's been an individual player at the top end of the pitch for them that's firing at this moment in time. So here's for a 3-0 Dundee United after I say that. It's a certainty, isn't it?
Well, the other... Yeah, I know. It's either 3-0 Dundee United or 0-0, seeing as you said they didn't disappoint. The other game...
All these games finishing at 0-0 this week after...
This is what's going to happen.
Here we're getting excited and you're just dismissing them as 0-0s.
Well, the final game of this weekend is St Mirren against Rangers, which is also looking pretty interesting. Moira, Danny Rowell there's been a couple of questions asked of him, particularly after the Cup quarter-final, questions about his team selection and his substitution, his in-game management. Do you think he is under pressure yet? I mean, I suppose the answer will be very different depending on the result on Sunday.
I think that's it. I think it's going to alternate between good and bad depending on what the result is, and it's going to be the way all the way to the end of the season, I think. Now, I think you ask, is he under pressure? I think any Celtic or Rangers manager that aren't delivering key wins when they matter is always going to be questioned. That's just the nature of the game here, and the size of the clubs. So I think there's pressure there to find results. Whether it's pressure enough that his job's been questioned yet, I don't necessarily think so. But I think there's certainly, for all the songs for him and the positivity there was from Rangers fans for a while there, I think there's now people beginning to take a step back, look at it, maybe a bigger picture, and just maybe not quite as enthralled by Danny as they had been when he was appointed at first. And
I wonder as well, Andy, what you think about the whole Bojan Majowski. I think a lot of fans at the weekend weren't happy about him not being introduced. Are you surprised he's not playing more?
Based on watching Rangers this season, I must say no. I think Bojan Miovski's not performed at the relevant level for me to be starting games for Rangers. That being said, I think if there is times for him to play, I think it is when it's a game that's basically played in your half and you're putting balls in the box and you're hoping for that finisher with that finishing instinct to get on the end of things. And I think that obviously comes as well for the fact that for me last weekend, I thought Ryan Nadiri's race was run. I thought he looked dead on his feet, round a bit extra time, so you expected a change in that area to in the pitch to be made. But I think recent weeks will tell you. I just think it's quite clear that Danny Rowe doesn't fancy Bojan Miovski. So I think when it comes to the summer, that he's kind of one of the players that you do expect to move on. But it's been such a problematic area of the pitch for Rangers all season long, and the worrying factor is they've spent so much money in that area to try and rectify it. Bojan Miovski came in for a decent fee. Ryan Naderi's been signed in January for £5 million, and Yusuf Chermiti was signed for £8 million. So you've got 3 strikers that have been signed this season to try and fire them to goals. And Yusuf Chermiti's got 9, which at this stage of the season for me, for an old firm striker, isn't a great return. Ryan Nadiri's only got 2, which both came against Queen's Park in the Cup, and Bojan Miovski's not scored enough either. I think the big chunk of his goals have came with a hat-trick against Annan Athletic in the Scottish Cup. So I don't really think any have staked their claim to be regulars week in, week out. But I think on the basis of the big game performances, you do think that Yusuf Chermiti is quite rightly been the one to lead the line. Now I still remember players for both sides of the old firm that have left their best stuff to this stage of the season. I think, from Rangers' point of view, I think Kyle Lafferty is quite famous for his post-split form. Now it's somebody can still be the hero for Rangers. We don't know who that could potentially be. I think there's loads of question marks over Skov Olsen for now to the end of the season as well. But if they can put a run together for the last 9 games of the season, a manager once told me that fans will remember the last 6 games of the season, and I found out at the end of that season that it was bang on. So you never know who could be the hero for Rangers.
Definitely not. I know plenty of time left to make yourself a name, isn't it? But the other team, St Mirren, are now without a manager. Moira, they've obviously been on a really poor run. They've now not got Stephen Robinson at the helm. I mean, it could go 2 ways, couldn't it? That could either be a kind of boost, get them firing again, get the players kind of like riled up, or it could go the complete other way and they could just collapse.
That's it. It'll be interesting times for them, because this is a squad that obviously it is a decent squad. Again, we've talked before about teams that have decent players in there but don't deliver. We saw them deliver the silverware earlier in the season, and then it's just collapsed from there. Now, a new manager coming in, as I said earlier, it's amazing how players that have been underperforming suddenly find a bit of spark when they've got a new manager and a new, contractor that coming up. So that might help, that they're looking to impress whoever's going to come in. It might help that there's a fresh voice addressing them before they head out there, and it's going to be interesting to see. But it's going to have to be the players again that show a bit of mettle. They're in a fight for that playoff spot, so it's going to be interesting to see whether they can actually spark themselves, get something going, and it tends to be that teams lift themselves as well when you've got likes of Celtic or Rangers coming. They don't want to be embarrassed, so they try and they find their very best. It's more out of fear than actually belief that they're going to do something. It's a fear of what could go wrong if they don't. So I think it'll be interesting to see that game. And again, they're up against a team that are, under pressure. As Andy said earlier, they're the team coming into it already aware of what Hearts or Celtic have done, that are going to have to do something. So St Mirren, if they can we keep saying that, get an early goal, maybe unsettle Rangers, that might be the key to this game.
You can listen to live commentary on Sportsound from 11:30 on Sunday on Radio Scotland. Right, well, before we finish up, we've got our rapid quick-fire prediction round. No waffle, just one-word answers, 5 questions. Andy, I'll come to you first. Which game do you think is going to be the coupon buster this weekend?
Aberdeen Falkirk.
Moira?
I think probably that one as well.
Okay.
Possibly St Mirren, but I think Aberdeen.
Andy, where do you think it's going to kick off at the weekend?
Celtic Motherwell.
Moira?
I think the derby.
Andy, which fans are waking up happiest on Monday morning?
Heart of Midlothian.
Moira?
I think Hearts as well.
Which team, Andy, is making the headlines on Sunday night?
I'll go Dundee.
Moira?
Just to be different, because we keep saying the same ones, why not go for St Mirren getting a wee sneaky draw?
Okay. And finally, Andy, I think I might know your answer to this one. Who are going to be the title favourites on Monday morning?
It's going to be the Galgay boys, I think. I'm going to go Hearts again.
Moira?
And you know what I think, Charlotte? I think it's Hearts' title, so I think it'll be Hearts.
It's hard to say. It's hard at the moment to say anyone else, isn't it? Mm-hmm. There we go. Well, that is all we've got time for. Many thanks to Moira and Andy, and thank you for listening. Don't forget, you've got Morton up against Partick Thistle on the BBC Scotland channel from 7:30 tonight. And remember, we are here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Enjoy your weekend, and we will catch you again very soon.